Hi class, I hope that you are doing well. I am, instead of giving individual feedback on the literature review, what I'm going to do for this one is I'm going to create this video to go over some patterns that I'm seeing as I'm going through these literature reviews. So I want to talk about a couple of things. Some of this stuff is going to apply to yours, some of it isn't, but I feel like there's some stuff that I definitely need to make clear. So, first of all, as you are going through your literature review, many of you are doing really well on this introduction, but make sure that you describe that overall topic that you have been investigating, why it is important to the field, and why you are interested in the topic. You can talk about how it relates to cereal, what is the potential for it to relate to cereal. You don't have to do that explicitly, but you need to make it clear that there is going to be a connection at some point. And then you're very generally going to talk about themes and trends in the research, in the literature that you found. This can be really, really short. You don't have to make that long. That can be a sentence or two. And then you need to make your narrow research question. And again, this can be different from what you had in your background essay. That's incredibly normal. I'm going over suggested structure 1. What I'm going to tell you right now applies to suggested structure 1 and suggested structure 2. So I want to talk about a couple of things here that seem to be hanging people up. The first thing I want to talk about is this idea of sub-themes. Many of you are kind of getting hung up on the idea of sub-themes. You may have sub-themes, you may not. For example, if your theme A is, let's say you're talking about the forensic science. So theme A is going to be forensic science, and so subtheme 1 would be DNA, and subtheme 2 would be fingerprints. And this is just an example, not a particularly great example. You're only going to have these subthemes if you have a pretty large theme that can be broken up. You do not have to have subthemes. So if you don't have subthemes because your theme A or whatever is already pretty narrow, that's okay. That's fine. However, if you don't have the subthemes, you still need to take these steps. Explain the research questions of the literature that you're finding. The methods and participants, so what are their methods, who are the participants, and related findings of the sources that you're using. Now, this is a summary section. So what you're doing is you're taking all the literature that relates to sub-theme A, I'm sorry, to theme A, not sub-theme A, but to theme A, and you're summarizing it. So taken all together, what are the research questions here? What are their methods, and what are the related findings? You're probably going to spend the most time on the related findings. So and you're also going to explain any connections that you haven't already explained. Most of you are actually doing really well on this summary section. The part where you're getting caught is this discussion and evaluation section. And depending on which organizational structure you use, where your discussion and evaluation goes may be different, but the content of the discussion and evaluation is going to be the same. You might have a discussion and evaluation after every theme, or you might have a big discussion and evaluation toward the end of your paper when you talk about all of the themes. And it doesn't matter which one you do, but you need to include the following. You need to look at the literature. And the reason that the discussion and evaluation seems a little bit tricky is because it actually borders on being an argument. This is your opinion. And it just has to be a reasoned opinion. But according to you, what are the contributions of this literature to the field and to this theme? So what is the good that it does? What's the new idea? How does it bring this field forward? What are the contributions? What does it give to the field? And then what are the overall strengths? So when you take this literature all together, you put it in a pile, what strengths does a literature have? And for this section, you might have to focus source by source. What's the strength of this source? What's the strength of this other source? as you're discussing it, because some sources might have different strengths. And then what are the weaknesses? Do they leave anything out? Is it biased? Usually there is bias. The bias is prevalent in almost all literature. So what are the biases? These people might come from a law enforcement field, and so they might have some kind of preconception about forensic science. Or they might be forensic scientists, so they think that forensic science is the be-all end-all and they're leaving out some other stuff. That kind of thing. What might be missing? Are there any holes that you find in this? Is there anything they don't address that maybe they should? And you can only figure this out if you've read all the literature and you look and see what other studies, other scholars have done. And you're like, oh, well, they're missing this big piece. And then this one, what is the significance of this literature, this big pile of literature as a whole, and this theme to the argument you will be making to Serial? This is something to definitely think about. How, and it's going to be really pretty much connected to this question up here. What's the contribution? And how is this going to work with Serial? This question, if you're getting stuck on this, save it for the conclusion. Sorry, I'm coughing. I don't know why. Save it for the conclusion and after you figure it all out. And this might be something that you still are kind of struggling with, and that's okay. You can really definitely figure this out when you get to your next paper, which is the original research argument, but keep it in mind. What is the significance of the literature in this theme? And these are the things that I really want you to think about. Now, as you are going forward in your conclusion, it's this question that you're really going to think about, and you're going to come up with a solid thesis that you're going to carry forward, at least in part, into your original research argument. But I want to make it very clear that the literature review is difficult. People get stuck on the discussion and evaluation more than any other part. And it's important that if you do get stuck, just focus on answering these questions. Don't do any more than that. Just try and answer the questions and then smooth it out. And that's your discussion and evaluation. And through that process, you'll really figure out what you're saying, but make sure that you do that. Several of you have gone the route of organizing by source. So instead of focusing on a theme, you're focusing on source 1 says this, and then you have a discussion and evaluation. Source 2 says this, summary, discussion, and evaluation. That seems like it's an easy way to go, but it's actually not, because you are not putting stuff together, so there's really no argument to be made. You're just reporting on what people are saying. In the discussion and evaluation section, you are able to put your own spin on what this means. The discussion and evaluation is your discussion and your evaluation of what all this means when you put it together. So it is very, very close to an argument. It's going to feel like an argument, and that's okay, because it is your opinion. What I don't want you to say is all forensic science is bad, blah, blah, blah. What I do want you to say is the literature is showing that, you know, this area of forensic science may have weaknesses in a trial, blah, 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 because of these reasons that these scholars state. I hope that this video is helpful. If you need any further clarification, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to let me know. I am happy to answer any questions that you have. If you do have a question, ask me a specific question about your paper. Like, instead of saying, how do I make it better? Say, I am really stuck on my introduction and my research question here. Can you help me with this? And I'll be happy to do that. The more specific your question, the better I can help you. I think that's it. Have a good day.